Right, let's take a look at the landscaper's marketing ladder, and I've borrowed this concept from a guy called Brad Sugars. Firstly, we take the number of leads, then we multiply that by your conversion rate, and that equals the number of actual customers. And we're going to assume this is over a 12-month period. Multiply that by the number of transactions, multiply that by the average dollar sale, and that equals your business turnover. If you then multiply that by the profit margin, and that equals the profit before tax and before operating expenses and that type of thing. Now let's take a closer look at this. But if you look at it over a 12-month period, let's say it averages out at 1.5 inquiries per week, which equals 75 inquiries per year. Now of course this is very low, but it's just to make an example. To make this easy, we're going to say it's a 40% conversion rate, which equals 30 actual clients on an annual basis. 30 clients on an annual basis. If the number of transactions per client per year is 1, in other words they spend once with that landscape company, and it's a $10,000 average spend, then the turnover for that landscape business is $300,000. If they have a 25% margin, profit margin, then the annual profit before expenses and tax and what have you is $75,000, because $75,000 of course is 25% of $300,000 turnover. Now, remembering, if nothing changes, then nothing changes. If you go about your business year in, year out, getting 75 inquiries per year with a conversion rate of 40%, then the end of the year your profit's going to be $75,000 year in, year out. Let's work on the conversion rate. If you increase the conversion rate to 60%, now if you employ a bunch of these strategies that I show you in these videos, you think you might be able to increase your conversion rate from 40% up to 60%. Well, I'll tell you right now, 60% conversion rate is very, very easy to achieve. That alters the actual customers up to 45 customers per year, because 60% of 75 is 45. Now if the transaction is still one transaction per customer per year, and if the spend is still only $10,000 per customer, then the turnover increases from $300,000 a year up to $450,000 per year. Now if we still operate a 25% margin, you can see here by simply altering the conversion rate up to 60% how the profit for the business, and again before tax and before running expenses, increases from $75,000 up to $112,000. Now the difference is a decent chunk of change, I'm sure you'll agree. It starts to make more sense to be in business simply by altering the conversion rate. Right, let's make a few more minor changes. So we've got the first scenario here still. Let's make some other minor changes. Let's work on the number of leads that are generated per year, and let's work on the number of transactions that are generated per year. Let's say we increase the number of leads on a weekly basis to 2, which of course, using round figures, we're generating 100 leads per year. Now if we also increase the conversion rate up to 80%, now 80% is probably where most landscape business owners think their conversion rate is. And don't get me wrong, some of them certainly are. But on average it will be a lot lower than that, I promise you. So if I haven't said it before, I highly recommend right now that you make a note to go and test and measure your conversion rate, and do it over at least a 2 or 3 month period. Make a note of every single inquiry that comes in and that you decide to go and see for a consultation, and then compare that with how many clients actually proceed further and become a client. Now hopefully at the end of this video series you've learned some stuff that'll help you improve your conversion rate. So it may not give you a true snapshot of what your conversion rate is currently, but even so it will give you a snapshot of what your conversion rate is after you've checked it or after you've measured it. So 80% of 100 of course is 80 clients per year. So you can see by making a few minor changes, half an extra customer per week, and again I don't know how we get half a customer per week, increase the conversion rate from 40 to 80% by using some of the strategies, or using the strategies that I'm going to show you in these videos, you more than double, you almost tripled the amount of customers that become actual paying clients on a 12-month basis. Now if you increase the number of transactions to 1.1 on average, meaning some clients are now becoming repeat clients. And of course you're starting to make connections with referral partners, this kind of thing. Let's assume the average dollar sale per transaction is still $10,000. The turnover jumps from $300,000 to $880,000. So it's a decent chunk of change. It's a decent turnover for most small landscape businesses. If the profit margin remains at 25%, which it shouldn't, it should be increasing of course, the profit goes up to $220,000 prior to tax and prior to running expenses. Now what happens if we tweak a couple of the other dials? What if we work on the average dollar sale and increase that as well? What if we also work on and increase the profit margins? Because people will nearly always pay more for your product or service than you are charging. In fact, that's your next writer downer for the day, is people will nearly always pay more for my product or service than what I'm charging. And the other writer downer is, normally the business owner stands in their own way more than the market stands in their way with regards to putting up price. Most people will pay more for your product or service. Let's say we increase the average dollar sale to $11,000, so just a small increase. But small increases, you see, because this is all multiplication, small increases can make a massive difference at the end. So we increase the average dollar sale to $11,000. That increases the turnover from $880,000 to $968,000. If we improve the profit margin from 25 to 30%, what that does is it increases the profit from $220,000 up to $290,000. Now the difference between $290,000 and $75,000 is about $215,000. It's a decent increase simply by tweaking some of these dials. We haven't really increased any of these hugely apart from the conversion rate. And conversion rate is directly related to tire kickers, or not going to see tire kickers. Conversion rate is directly related to the processes that you follow, directly related to how you position yourself and your clients. The better you get at these things, the better your conversion rate is going to be. When you multiply it through all the way, look at the difference it can make to the profit in your business. Now again, you've got tax and expenses to take out of that, but you've also got tax and expenses to take out of this. And there'll be some expenses that don't change from the $75,000 a year profit to the $290,000 a year profit. Now just so we're clear, I'm making absolutely no guarantees that you can achieve this. I'm simply showing you that by tweaking a number of dials in your landscape business with regards to how you do business, how you can dramatically improve the profit on an annual basis. I said before we'd take a look at why traditional advertising doesn't work for landscapers. And before we start, one thing I want to make very clear is that advertising and marketing, whilst they're closely related, they are not the same thing.